you a dark dreamer? It is said that to best enjoy the light, you must first explore the heart and soul of the darkness. We are the artists who create in the shadows, whose dreams are designed to become your reality. I'm Stanley Wiater. Welcome to my world of the dark fantastic. Welcome to the world of dark dreamers. Are you a dark dreamer? Peter Atkins, most remarkably, is. Born in Liverpool, England, Peter Atkins is a former actor who has turned his talents to the silver screen and the printed page as a writer. Atkins' first screenplay was Hellbound, the sequel to Clive Barker's Hellraiser. Given the critical and commercial success of Hellbound, Atkins went on to write the second and third sequels in that series, Hell on Earth and Bloodline. Atkins also wrote the original screenplay for Wishmaster. In collaboration with director Tony Randall, Atkins co-wrote the dark fantasy Fist of the North Star. Atkins to date has also published the novels Morning Star and Big Thunder, as well as a collection of his short fiction. Peter recently invited us to his home in Los Angeles to tell us how a lad from Liverpool could grow up to be a dark dreamer. All right, Peter, what does the term dark dreamer mean to you?
I think the most important thing about people who work in dark fantasy, horror, whatever you want to call it, or science fiction or straight fantasy, is that unlike a lot of the social realism that has conquered mainstream literature and film, it is a place, a field, a genre where the imagination is dominant and people are rewarded for the sometimes ludicrous excesses of their imagination. And dark dreamers, of course, is a very handy label and clue to the particular spin that our corner of the field has. And I like it because it's there's a certain specificity to it without it being too exclusive. It sounds fairly inclusive. It could cover a lot of people who have odd dreams, dark dreams, not necessarily horrific dreams, but dreams a little out of the ordinary, dreams in which stuff happens.
Did you always want to be a writer when you were a child?
I don't think there was ever a day, ever, not just as a child or as an adult, where I said, well, I've decided I'll be a writer, by God. It was, again, you stumble towards it. And I remember very early on trying to write and draw my own comic books, but never with any conscious thought that this was a significant thing to do. I didn't think, oh, look, I'm writing and drawing. It was just a desire to reproduce, to become part of this wonderful milieu of weird stuff that I liked. I guess like a lot of people in my generation, actually, the first thing I did in the arts, to put the pretentious hat on it, was to form a rock and roll band. And I was in a high school rock and roll band, and actually it was a direct consequence of that, because the drummer in that rock and roll band, we're like 17 years old and crap. But the drummer was a guy a couple of years younger than me at school called Graham Bickley. And after we'd known each other for a few weeks, he said to me, you should meet me sister's mate, Clive. He's like you. He reads books. Which obviously in Graham's head was a weird enough similarity that, these guys must be soulmates, And through Graham, I met that crowd, and that crowd eventually evolved into the Dog Company. The names that might be known to people interested in this stuff would be me, Clive Barker, obviously, and Doug Bradley, who years later was to become Pinhead in the Hellraiser movies. So I sidestepped from rock and roll into incredibly pretentious and avant-garde theatre, which we did for 5 years or so. And again, at no stage was I thinking this is anything unusual or even a choice. It was like, well, this is what you do with people you like. You make things. Either you all get instruments and write songs, or you all get together in a rehearsal room and make plays. And I gave that up to go back into rock and roll because I figured that this avant-garde life had robbed me of my natural Liverpool adolescence, which was getting drunk, driving in stolen cars, and having a lot of sex with bad women. So I need that. So I left the Dog Company for a while and spent another 5 years with a somewhat better rock and roll band called The Chase, and we played the pubs and clubs of Liverpool. And then I hit 30, and I realised that although if you're already a pop star, you can stay a pop star at 30, you ain't going to become one. So I only hung up the guitar temporarily because I got a band here now as well. But I started writing then, I suppose, and that would be the nearest to a conscious choice. But again, I'm not, looking back, I don't remember thinking, oh, I know, I'll write. It just seemed a natural outgrowth of like, well, this is what you do. You do this stuff. You love this stuff as a consumer. And so it seemed to me, at least, that the natural thing to do was to try and do that stuff as a whatever the opposite of a consumer is, a producer or something, a practitioner. And so I started writing short fiction. And I guess to really get to the heart of your question, what was odd is not that I started doing it, but that once I was doing it, it felt extremely natural, and it felt as if I'd been doing it all along, as if everything had been variations on this theme, and now I was choosing to play the major theme rather than riff on it. And Clive was directly instrumental, of course, in getting me into the film side of it, because Clive showed a novella of mine to the English producer of the first Hellraiser movie, because he knew they were looking for a sequel. And Chris Figg, who was the producer, called me up. And I didn't realize how lucky and unusual this was, by the way. Again, I'm just stumbling through life, having fun. And Chris Figg, basically, on the strength of reading, I think, only one piece of fiction, and doubtless Clive's recommendation helped, offered me the job. And, I'd never seen a screenplay in my life, but I called Clive and said, lend me a copy of Hellraiser, and, oh, I see, you put the dialogue in the middle. Very interesting. Ooh, interior, farmhouse, day, okay. But once that happened, it was like it felt a natural place for me. It was like, oh, yeah, this is good. I sit here, type, don't have to shower. And it's a good life.
Peter, could you tell us why you continued your relationship with the Hellraiser films with Hellraiser 3?
But the simple answer to why I continued is they asked me, and they offered me a contract. And I had a pretty good time with the whole series. I was on set probably half of the shoot of Hellraiser 2. I was on set throughout Hellraiser 3. In fact, I got to play one of the monsters in Hellraiser 3, which was a real thrill.
But tell us, when did you meet your wife, or your wife-to-be?
The first time she met me, I was in full monster makeup. Actually, I don't think I'd yet pulled the head on, but I was in this huge padded Cenobite suit with knives and crap hanging all over me. So, that must have done the trick. In fact, I can advise all you lonely bachelors out there that just slap the monster makeup on, kids, and you'll get the girls. I don't know.
Now, how did you go from writing the Hellraiser films to writing Wishmaster, which was produced by Wes Craven?
Well, Wishmaster came about, in a way, in a much more normal fashion, because by the time I did Wishmaster, I was already living here. I was a full-time Hollywood screenwriter, I guess. And again, that was a very nice experience for me. I've been pretty lucky as a screenwriter because, again, I was on set throughout Wishmaster. I formed a very, very close and friendly relationship with Bob Kurtzman, who directed the movie, who was, Bob is the K in KNB, who are the special effects geniuses. And like me, had grown up monster freaks. We're all just geeks who suddenly get paid for doing this stuff. So I loved Bob, and Bob really liked the script, and we had a great time with the movie.
What do you think is the worst misconception about what you do for a living?
The middle-class, puritanical misconceptions about horror writers that we're bad people. that the fantasies we put on paper are actually our fantasies. And of course, they are our fantasies, but that we approve of evil, that we approve of malice, that we approve of darkness, that we approve of heartbreak. And I don't want to speak for the tribe, but I don't approve of any of those things. And I think for those people, what might surprise them is that I tend to regard horror literature, particularly my own favorite strand, supernatural horror literature, as actually spiritual work, or at least metaphysical work. Because it impinges on, even at its tritest level, it inevitably impinges on serious questions of life and death and life after death and the interfaces between life and death and all those things.
Peter, you're a successful screenwriter. Why the desire then to write novels?
I didn't grow up feeling that separation. I didn't grow up thinking you can be this or this. I read a lot of books when I was a kid. I watched a lot of movies when I was a kid. I listened to a lot of music when I was a kid. And so far, they haven't arrested me. So far they haven't said, "I'm sorry, this is not allowed." My good friend Neil Gaiman and I have this shared fantasy. Everybody knows about the imposter syndrome, that all of us sort of stumble into this life. None of us actually think we're real at it. Everybody else is real, but of course we're not, because we're just us. Yeah. And Neil and I came up with this on the phone one day, that we're constantly waiting for the knock at the door, because being English, it's the particular kind of bureaucrat, probably out of a Monty Python sketch, and we'd open the door one day and there'll be a man in a nice black suit and he'll have a clipboard and he'll say, "Mr. Atkins?" And I'll say yes, and he says, "Well, yes, sir. I'm terribly sorry, it's all been a mistake. We'd like it all back now. You're not a writer, you don't work in the film industry, and you don't have any money." And both Neil and I constantly expect that knock on the door, because, who the hell are we kidding?